If you forgot which book I was teaching in, because seems like it's been forever. But in Job chapter 38, Lord willing, we're going to finish this chapter tonight. Probably due to the fact that I don't know a lot of the application or the answer. You know, he's asking Job all these questions, and Job can't answer them. Well, I can't answer them either. Some of them have actually become knowable. But when you look at the time gap of how long it took man to even have an idea what God was talking about, I think Job just looking at him going, I don't even know what you're talking about. I don't know how he could have. And look where we're at, verse 37. Oh, I'm sorry. Wrong page. Verse 35. And this is going to be like question number 31. I really haven't kept up with that. I should have kind of, as I went along, numbered each question. But it's like question number 31. And he says there in verse 35, canst thou send lightnings that they may go and say unto thee, here we are. Job's going, huh? Well, it took 36 centuries, 36 centuries for man to finally harness electricity from where the Lord mentions it here in Job. Even though man doesn't even know exactly what it is. Like I said, there's a lot of things man can do, but he doesn't understand energy. He just knows that he can harness it. He knows a few things about it, but he really doesn't know what it is. It's like magnetism, gravity, all these things. Now, these are things God put in place, and I just say, well, they're a law of God. But they can't explain really what they are. It's going to boil down to, well, God is a spirit. It's all going to link back to some type of spiritual energy. It has to, because it came from God, and God is a spirit, and before him is what? God, that's it. So the fact that he's created this physical world, and it's made of tiny things that cannot be seen, that have intense power within them, the atom, somehow that's all connected back to God. I mean, there's no other answer to it. But anyway, so 3,600 years later, man can finally pick up a phone and from across town say to another one, here we are. Because that's what it is. Lightning is electricity, okay? And you just dial that phone and that pulse, it's instantly on the other side, the speed of light practically, there it is, it's on the other side. The telegraph is the same way. Here we are. Morse code, whatever they used. Both of those, the telephone and the telegraph, fit perfectly the text. Canst thou send lightnings that they may go and say unto thee, here we are. Job wouldn't have had a clue, but we do today that exactly what we've been doing. We get up, and something else, every form of communication manipulates energy as waves or frequencies. This is true of the electricity coming into your home. I think you run on a 60 hertz. I think that's what we're on, 50 or 60 hertz. That's a wavelength, or I think it's so many pulses per. I don't know how I can't remember what the. Anybody know what a hertz is? No. 60 hertz. He probably is. A ham radio, shortwave, CB, walkie-talkies, cell phones, radar, sonar, laser beams, fiber optics. No matter what energy it is, you're dealing in wavelengths and you're dealing in frequency. And here God spoke about this 3,600 years before we even had a clue. Ben Franklin, 1706 to 1790. It's when he nearly got himself killed. I don't know how true that. I guess, is it true where he puts the key on the kite and flies it up there? They say it is. Go fly a kite in a storm with a big key on there. But it was Alexander Graham Bell, 1847 to 1922, harnessed it and invented the telephone. Now, of course, the telegraph was already around. I'm not sure when it actually came to pass, but it would be the same thing. Every time they clicked, that sent a pulse of electricity down the line at the speed of light to the other end. And those things are, we're just now getting those in the, 19th century? 19th century? Maybe the 18th century for the telegraph. That's 3,600 years ago when God told Job about it. And we think we're so advanced. I mean, we're actually we're very far behind the Bible when it comes to what God knows and what we know. Very far behind. Doc makes this declaration. He says it hasn't improved our lives. Electricity hasn't. For one thing, it's pretty dangerous. It has stopped no one from eventually dying. I mean, everybody eventually dies. I mean, you say, well, it keeps you alive longer. Yeah, and that's so the hospital can bill you. Listen, if you're saved, do you really want to stay here in a vegetative state? Do you want to stay here lying in a hospital bed, having people to have to roll you over and diaper you, and to suffer whatever indignity and also to suffer pain? Is that really your idea of living? Not mine, man. You say, well, they used to die at 50. Now we lived. Yeah, but we lived to where they drain us of everything that we have, and they take it in the form of hospital bills and pills and everything else. I don't know if it's improved all that much. If you have longevity and you're healthy, praise the Lord. But man, if you're sickly and you're just dying 1 inch at a time, as far as I'm concerned, just, Lord, take me. Just let me go. Rather than to just kind of drag it out. Here's what I don't want to do. And knowing the coward that I am, I don't want to scratch and claw my way out from going out of this world. I want to let go. I mean, if it's my time and that's what the Lord wants, I want to stay. I don't want to stay. I don't. Who would want to stay here? You got to be half crazy. And to die is far better. Now, I know that little transition thing called death, that's a sticky subject. But man, once you get past that, so what you pray for is a quick death. That's what you pray for. So you might live longer. That's not necessarily a better life. It's very dangerous. Electricity is. It fuels war. I mean, it's mechanized war. It creates total dependency. They said if something happens to our electrical grid, a place like New York City, I think within like 3 months there'll be a 90% death rate. 90%. And of course, the other 10% will be on the run, trying to take what they can get from you if you live outside the city. But I mean, they'll just die because they're completely dependent upon, okay, you say, well, gasoline. Yeah, but you try starting a car without electricity. You try starting a car if you've had one of those magnetic, what is it? EMP, electromagnetic pulse. If you had an EMP and it's knocked out, every circuit board or whatever in every car, and it doesn't do any good to have fuel. But it does create total dependency, and it can kill you by touch. Some of the worst accidents I think I've ever heard of, Doc had a few in his commentary, man, where it has, I saw one where a guy he was backpacking, and they did this entire documentary on him. He was backpacking up in California somewhere, he's up in the hills, and he comes across this bear that is dead, and he's laying over this kind of like, I don't know, some type of opening. And he just goes up and touches the bear. The bear is lying on a very, very high voltage line, something that should have been locked up. Well, this bear is laying on it dead. And he touches that bear, and it just like explosions, man. His skin burst open we're talking some serious current, where body parts actually explode. He lived. But I can't tell you how long it took him to recover, but other people have noticed, it can cause you to explode if such high voltage. It's dangerous stuff. See where I'm at here.
I was talking to a guy who talked to somebody that worked for the power company. He said back in the day, people would break in those big hubs where, big electric grid and everything, go in there with bolt cutters, try and cut like copper off and stuff. He said literally all that's left is the bolt cutters. Yeah. But you're talking about, a city where the power.
Yep. I mean, you think about a lightning strike of how much voltage those things can do, man. I mean, some serious stuff. And they don't, like I said, they can harness it, but they don't really know what it is. Well, it's electrons. I mean, yeah, but what is it? What is the power? They don't know. The other thing that electricity does, and through communications, allow you to gossip 24 hours a day. And you can gossip actually to a neighbor that's on the other side of the globe. So communications and transportation are really the only two things that have improved, and I'm not sure that's been good. We're still dying. We just get to the funeral home refrigerator a little quicker. They can get you on ice a little quicker, get you to the funeral home. But here's something else. Look at Matthew chapter 24. Turn there. Matthew chapter 24, look at verse 27. Matthew 24:27. For as lightning cometh out of the east and shineth even to the west, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. Now we have another application to the second advent. And guess what? It's like this. It's like, here we are. We're back. And that's the truth. We are back. And you say, what will our appearance be? Like lightning. Like lightning. So there's an application here of, just a bolt of lightning. It's like, ta-da, here we are. Look at Matthew 28 while you're there. Turn a couple chapters over. Matthew 28, look at verse 3. His countenance was like lightning, and his raiment white as snow. Ezekiel 1:14. Now, these living creatures transport the throne of God. It says the living creatures ran and returned as the appearance of a flash of lightning. So, and there's some connection with this and the second advent. I don't know. Jesus is on the Lord Jesus Christ is on a white horse, but there's some connection with this, these cherubim and I don't know. I'm not sure how to apply that, but it says they move as fast as lightning. So, and it may be that we're moving that quick too. So there's another application. Canst thou send lightnings that they may go and say unto thee, here we are. Well, that's going to happen. One of these days we're going to say to the world, here we are. And they're not going to like it either. All right, look at verse 36. It says, who hath put wisdom in the inward parts, or who hath given understanding to the heart? Two things there, wisdom and understanding. Very important that the Christian know the difference between those two. Wisdom, and by the way, this is question number 32. Wisdom is knowing how to use what you know. Knowing how to use what you know. That's wisdom. Wisdom has been able to put knowledge to work. They that can't do, teach. That's the old saying. They that can't do, teach. Why? Because they don't know how to put the knowledge that they may know something. I know how to build a wall, but I can't build one because the wisdom escapes me of how to put the knowledge to work. But wisdom can also be devilish, sensual. I mean, it can be wicked because wisdom is just taking knowledge and putting it to work, able to do something. Look at James 2:14 and 15. You write that down. I'll read this to you. It says, but if you have bitter envying and strife in your hearts, glory not, lie not against the truth. This wisdom descendeth not from above, but is earthly, sensual, devilish. The ability to lie against the truth is earthly, sensual, and devilish. And some people are rather gifted at it. A con man has wisdom. He knows how to manipulate you and deceive you. Knowing how to seduce or to steal with skill is wisdom. It's just evil. Evil wisdom. They say we take a criminal, we put him in jail, and we harden that criminal by sending him to a place where he can perfect his profession, because he's amongst the other thieves. I mean, they learn how to deceive even more or better. You've probably met people like that, man. They can talk you out of your shirt, you know. They can talk you out of your money. It happens all the time. The elderly are subject to that, where somebody gets on there and gives them a line. But, well, yeah, it's true. Every politician is gifted with this same devilish, sensual type of wisdom. Knowing how to deceive or to be subtle in deceiving is wisdom, but it's not from above. I'm going to give you 4 verses here. It says, now the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field which the Lord God had made. He said unto the woman, yea, hath God said, ye shall not eat of every tree of the garden. We've examined that verse here in church before. That is the most confounded verse I think I've ever read, because I'm not even sure what he's saying. Yea, hath God said? What does that mean? Yes, hath God said. It just kind of leaves you kind of, what? And ye shall not eat of every tree of the garden. Yes, he said we couldn't, or yes, he said we could. Anyway, but notice he's more subtle. He's skilled at it. It's wisdom. The Bible says about him in Ezekiel 28:3, behold, thou art wiser than Daniel. Well, obviously that's not a good wisdom. Behold, thou art wiser than Daniel. There's no secret that they can hide from thee. And he's talking about that cherub. In 2 Samuel 13:3, it says, but Amnon had a friend whose name was Jonadab, the son of Shimeah, David's brother, and Jonadab was a very subtle man. I mean, he knew just how to manipulate his brother. I'm trying to think who it was. Amnon, to manipulate his brother into raping his half-sister. Proverbs 7:10 says, and behold, there met him a woman with the attire of a harlot, subtle of heart. Subtle of heart. I mean, they'll just lure you in. I mean, if you're gonna put yourself in that situation, they're trained to get you in. It's like these salesmen, man. They get you on the phone, man, and I'm telling you, make that sale no matter what. And I had a car dealership. And their rule was not to let you out unless you'd bought a car. Once they had you sit down, and it is not to let you out unless you bought the car. Rachel bought the car. I mean, they weren't going to let us out of there. They just kept throwing more of the deal and this and that, and finally we succumbed, or she did. Anyway, so that's wisdom, okay? There's good wisdom. You can find all through Proverbs and Ecclesiastes and other Psalms. But then there's understanding. Understanding is how everything relates to God. That's understanding. That's what the world lacks, is understanding. Job 28:28 says, and unto man he said, behold the fear of the Lord, that is wisdom. Everything in relation to him. The fear of the Lord is wisdom, and to depart from evil is understanding. So it's understanding everything in relationship to God. Ultimately, that's what you're to do. You're to consider everything in your relationship with God, and that is understanding. And you know what that will cause you to do? Depart from evil. Well, obviously, that's not something the world knows anything about. So they can be wise. They can have knowledge. You can talk to people like they're an encyclopedia. But that doesn't mean the one that's got knowledge doesn't mean they got wisdom. I've known a lot of guys that know a lot of things and they can't do much or anything. I happen to be one of them when it comes to certain things. I know what I lack. The Bible says, if any man lack wisdom, let him ask of God, who giveth to all men liberally. I ask God for wisdom on how to do stuff. I said, I know it. I just can't do it. Does that ever frustrate you? Some of you guys, I hate you. You can do just about anything. And that is, you just don't understand how great a gift that is if you don't have it. Anyway, I don't hate you. I'm just envious of you. And Yeah. Now, if God deprives an animal of wisdom, disaster occurs. Look in Job 39 here. And we are going to get to this, so I don't want to comment too much on it. It's in the next chapter. Job 39, look at verse 14. He's talking about the ostrich there, verse 13, which leaveth her eggs in the earth and warmeth them in dust, and forgetteth that the foot may crush them, or that the wild beast may break them. She is hardened against her young ones as though they were not hers. Her labor is in vain without fear, because God hath deprived her of wisdom. Neither hath he imparted to her understanding. So that ostrich won't even consider that she's stepping on her own eggs or crushing her own eggs. It's just not there. She may have knowledge that she has young, but doesn't have the wisdom not to even step on the eggs. And God did that for a purpose, to show you someone deprived. Listen, someone be deprived of wisdom, tragedy occurs. Now, with man, when God deprives a man of understanding, tragedy occurs. Let me give you the verse here I've got here. Proverbs 6:32. Now, whether the man's deprived or he rejects it, Proverbs 6:32 says, "But whoso committeth adultery with a woman lacketh understanding. He that doeth it destroyeth his own soul." One of the things these guys in the prison, we were talking about adultery and fornication last night. And they're just like, that was a new concept to them. They thought that, their girlfriends and going from woman to woman and laying with her, that's okay, right? We're not married. It just, adultery, fornication. Adultery is with a married person. Fornication is every sexual act outside of marriage. Every sexual act. So, he says there, "Whoso committeth adultery with a woman lacketh understanding. He that doeth it destroyeth his own soul." A man either rejects it or he's deprived of it. Well, he won't open his Bible, so he doesn't understand that. Revelation 13:18 says, "Here is wisdom. Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, the number 666." Okay, there's understanding. You look for that number, and so do I. I look for that number in everything. When I found out the barcode had 6, 6, and 6 in the beginning, the middle, and the end, I went, whoa. That's pretty interesting. Now, I don't think that's necessarily the mark of the beast, although it could be connected. If they had to put a mark on you and they had to identify you, they could use a barcode. Okay? Now, they probably got some bio ink now that they could just use. They could put a little black spot on you, and it would have all that information, and they would just scan it. You just go through Kroger's, instead of them, they just scan your forehead, and it gives them your account, your name. It takes it out of your account, and away you go. Black spot right there. Most Catholics are used to that on Ash Wednesday, so they'll probably just fall right in line. Grandma wants a tattoo. Why not get a little black spot right there? It may even be, I'm sure it's black. Yeah, it'd be black. But let him that hath understanding in relation to God, in relation to this book, we know his number. Now, we don't know his name. We know what his mark is, but we don't know his name. But we sure do know what his mark or his number is. 2 Timothy 2:7 says, "Consider what I say, and the Lord give thee understanding in all things." You need to pray for that. If you can pray for wisdom, you can pray for understanding. If you can understand what's going on in your life in relationship to God, you'll know what you're doing. If you can't make any sense of it, because there's a reason why God has you here. There's a reason why God allows things in your life that you don't understand. You have to ask God for the understanding of it, and He'll give it to you. Sometimes He'll make you wait on it. That's to just test your patience and to see if you're really faithful to Him. I tell these guys, life's full of a bunch of tests, and it's really for your benefit, because it teaches you to wait on God. I know we want him to jump when we say jump, but it don't work that way. You don't tell God to jump. He tells you when to jump. And sometimes you just have to wait on him, but he'll give you understanding about it. I was going to say something about the instinct of animals and insects. And that is something that is imparted by God. Science, I don't know what they think. The magnetic poles somehow cause the animals to do this or that, and the environment causes the animals and insects to do this or that. But I've watched Animal Planet. I'm educated. I've seen the insects do their little dances and stuff, and the birds, and all the weird stuff that they do. And how they know where to fly to, how they know where to go. How does a spider know how to build a web? Every last one of them do. Or that build webs. They know how. How do they know how? But they do. Birds know where to fly to lay their eggs halfway around the world. Some animals go to a place they've never even been to, and they know how to get there. How is that? Insects know instinctively how to survive, to reproduce, to find food, to find a mate. It's amazing. That's because God imparted that wisdom to that particular creature. And where he pulls back that wisdom, you see just how hard it can be to function without wisdom. Like that ostrich. I'm sure there's a greater example there. Lord willing, we'll look at that a little bit more. I did want to say about subtlety. There's one positive verse on subtlety. And that's in Proverbs chapter 1. And he's talking about wisdom. That's all about wisdom. And it says, to give subtlety to the simple, and the young man knowledge and discretion. And there's a verse that says to be as wise as a serpent and as harmless as a dove. And I know we understand like a serpent represents something evil, but he said be wise as a serpent. Serpent's patient. Serpent is silent most of the time. And it waits for its prey. So there's something about, there's Christians that open their mouth and everything they know comes out of their face. And it might not be the best timing. I know, and I'll be very honest with you, I have had that problem. When I got a little knowledge under my belt, the next door neighbor heard about it. I had a baker that I would go to work, and everything I learned in the Bible Institute that week, I told him. By the way, he is in church and he's saved. So now, I don't know if it had anything to do with it, but I'm sure he got tired of hearing me. Or sometimes you say, just go to work. I was there 45 minutes early every day. I said, man, guess what I learned? I was excited, but I also didn't have a filter on my mouth as far as how much to say and what to say. Some things in the Bible, man, you just can't blurt it out. There are some verses in Song of Solomon or some verses in the Old Testament I just would not kind of read out, kind of look at the audience I've got of whether I want to read those things out or talk about them, okay? Because it just wouldn't be proper to go into certain subject matter in mixed company. So, and depending on who you got here. Some of the lost can't take, they can't take it. Man, some of the saved can't take it. I think that's obvious, that there's some things in the Bible they just can't deal with. Okay, let's move on here. Verse 37, 38. It says, who can number the clouds in wisdom? Who can stay the bottles of heaven when the dust groweth into hardness and the clods cleave fast together? I know what that's like when that ground gets, man, when you don't have 6 weeks of rain, you can drill down 1.5 feet and it'll be just as dry as dust, if you can drill down. Have you ever got one of them things, that digs holes, one of those electric motorized gas-operated post hole diggers? When it's real wet, it's just, you pull it out and it's done. When it's dry, it's like going through granite. At least it is in my house. I've got clay underneath. And you can drive a tank on the property. When it's wet, you can't even drive a bicycle or a lawnmower. It'll get stuck in the mud because it just turns to mush. But when it hardens up, man, And when the drier it gets, the harder the earth gets, starts cracking, but those clods are just, they're like boulders. Can't break them up. So he says there, who can number the clouds in wisdom? Who can stay the bottles of heaven when the dust groweth into hardness and the clods cleave together? Well, man can't number, and we can't number the clouds or stop the rain. And this is the application to the tribulation, is you have a 3.5-year drought, then you have a deluge right at the end. You actually have a flood at the end. And so this is going to apply to that. Cloud formations, by the way, the reason you can't number the clouds is they're always changing. I don't know about you, but you can go out there 1 minute and see a bunch of clouds, go out there next minute and not be any clouds, or those clouds changed. They change formation minute to minute. And there could be layers upon layers for thousands of feet of these clouds. So man can't number them. There's no possible way. There's not a technology that exists for him to number the clouds, just like he can't number the stars, according to the Bible. And he can't. So you have a 3.5-year drought followed by the former and latter rains, producing a flood of water able to devour the children of Israel. Now, I believe that flood is localized over there. I don't believe the rest of the earth is getting the rain that the promised land is getting. And we've gone through these verses. I'm not going to go through all of them again, but Hosea 6:3, it talks about the former and latter rain. Joel 2:23 says, He hath given you the former rain moderately, and he will cause to come down for you the rain, the former rain and the latter rain in the first month. Well, the first month is Abib or Nisan, thank you. And that would be March, April. I believe that's the time frame of the first month that corresponds with ours. So what that means is you're within 6 months of the Advent. When this former and latter rain comes down in the promised land, 6 months later the Advent takes place. And it says that the land before him, when he hits, listen, where he starts is Sinai. He doesn't touch the ground, but that's where he starts. He comes down, and there he goes up the King's Highway, same route that the children of Israel took in the Old Testament, coming up there by Edom, Ammon, Moab, and lands on the Mount of Olives and splits that thing. He says the land before him is as the Garden of Eden. But that fire is just burning. And it says behind him is a desolate wilderness. I mean, just a path of destruction and fire. So, because Revelation 12 says this, the serpent, and I don't understand this, a lot of this, it says the serpent cast out of his mouth waters of flood after the woman. Well, we know who the serpent is, that's the devil. We know that the woman is Israel. That he might cause her to be carried away of the flood. And the earth helped the woman, and the earth opened her mouth and swallowed up the flood, which the dragon cast out of his mouth. So you say, well, there's probably some spiritual, there might be, and it might be literal too. It might literally be a flood of water that's released, I don't know. And somehow the earth opens up. Maybe Moses and Elijah do that. I don't know. But it swallows up that flood. Man is still incapable of controlling any facet of the weather and can only prognosticate what it might do. And they're not always right. I can remember when the weatherman was wrong most of the time. They're a little bit better now. They got a little bit better technology, but they still get it wrong. I remember one time, they said, we're just going to get a dusting. It was like 5 inches the next morning, I thought, it's some kind of dusting. Just a dusting of snow. And it was a pretty good snow. So they could be wrong. Look at verse 39 to 41. And he says to Job, wilt thou hunt the prey for the lion? You going to feed my lions for me? Or feel the appetite of the young lions? When they couch in their dens and abide in the covert to lie in wait? Who provided for the raven his food when his young ones cry unto God and they wonder for lack of meat? So all these things, and you got to give this one some thought. How does God feed everything out there? You ever thought about that? I mean, the animal kingdom just goes, except for when we interfere with it, the animal kingdom just goes on and on and on. Because there's so much involved there. There's migratory patterns. There's weather patterns. There's water sources, seed distributions. And that's just a few of the things that are involved with everybody getting fed. Those animals sometimes have to wait for migratory herds to come back at certain times of the year, but instinctively all this takes place where God has put this thing in motion. We already know that, evaporation, condensation, we know that's where the rain comes from. Evaporates from the ocean and comes over the land and drops water. But we're talking about an entire earth filled with insects and animals, and God feeds them and keeps them alive. They don't perish. What has gone extinct, usually we were responsible for it going extinct. It's just that the efficiency of God's system is just incredible. And they can't even begin to understand. They try to come up with these things, but they don't know how it's all synchronized and how God's got this thing in patterns and He's operating it efficiently. It's only when we get in it, that it starts to get all messed up. You've got there where He mentions the lion. Okay, the lion kills the wildebeest, and then the raven comes along and picks clean the bones. But then the canines, whether they be dogs or jackals or something like, they come along, chew on the bones. And then the mice, well, they'll eat the antlers. Talk about an efficient system. You see what happens? It goes right back to the earth. Dung cast in the fields, and there it goes right back to the earth. If that ain't it, the maggots will eat it. Huh? Microbes. It's an efficient system that God's got. He's always got. We call them yard birds. Those big black birds. You look like chickens. They're cleaning up everything you're hitting with your car. That deer over there, they'll pick it clean. The coyotes, they'll pick it clean. And if not that, the maggots will. Something will eat it. Then you got your ants, they'll clean up the morsels. Everything back to the ground where it came from. Man's system is toxic dumps, trash heaps as big as mountains, contaminated grounds and waterways. That's our system. Because that's what we end up cleaning up. We don't know what to do with it. We don't have an efficient system because we don't have God. So we just go ahead and pollute the planet. Now, God's going to go ahead. I'm not saying that I'm not up here as an environmentalist. I say eat the spotted owl with a little gravy. Manage it. I'll tell you what makes me angry. People throwing trash out of their car. There's nothing I hate to see is trash. I see trash. I live a half mile off the road and I still pick trash off my property. Not a lot, but I do some. It's just amazing to me. If we would just manage the environment that God gave us, we don't have to go crazy with DDT, but I don't think we ever should have got rid of it. There are certain things we need just to control the pestilence that's out there. But then, if we go overboard, we just need to pull back and not eliminate everything. We've got the stupidest answers. We either get rid of it and then it causes more problems by getting rid of it. I think one of them is, what's that thing you get in the jungle? You get it from a mosquito? No. Malaria. Malaria is a maybe not a problem here, but it's pretty much a worldwide problem where they have jungles and tropical areas. It's a real problem. Well, you know what killed those mosquitoes effectively, don't you? DDT. And then, we got to get rid of, the eggshells are getting too thin. Well, how about just dialing it back a little and managing it better? You manage your trash, you manage your dumps, you manage wastewater treatment systems, you manage. It's manageable. God made it that way. But man's ways, they're just toxic. In the Old Testament system, it minimized toxicity back. If you go back and read how they were to live, it's pretty minimal. If they had disease, they burn that place to the ground. Bury it. It said bury the dung. The Lord said, don't leave it on the ground. Why? Because, well, there's bacteria, there's spreading disease, there's worms in it. Bury the stuff. He said, I don't want to see it on the ground when I'm walking around the congregation. He told the priest to wash with running water. You know, like a shower that rinses the filth and the disease and the germs off of you instead of bathing in it. Now, I realize bathing today, I mean, you got so much chlorine in your water. I mean, it's probably taken care of, unless you got well water, but a shower is going to be much more cleanly than a bath. Now, I'm not against taking a bath, but I'm just saying that, you know, when it comes to you're rinsing the filth off of you down the drain. Whereas with a bath, you're actually bathing in the filth because you're filling the bath. I don't know about you, when I grew up, I had a brother and a sister, and Mom filled the bath water once. And then everybody got a bath. And if I was last in line, man, I'm looking at that water, I'm like, I'm not getting in there. I mean, that's disgusting, but, you know, we had to do that back then. We had to conserve. Anyway, now this, when he mentions there, wilt thou hunt the prey for the lion or fill the appetite of the young lions, I mean, we could apply it to the Lord as a lion. It says, and one of the elders, this is Revelation 5:5, one of the elders saith to me, weep not, behold, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the root of David, hath prevailed to open the book, to loose the seals thereof. I mean, the Lord is kind of waiting like a lion, and I mean, he's covert, ready to pounce upon his enemies, waiting for that time or that opportunity. Isaiah 31:4 says this, for thus hath the Lord spoken unto me, like as a lion, or like as the lion and the young lion roaring on his prey, when a multitude of shepherds is called forth against him, he will not be afraid of their voice, nor abase himself for the noise of them. So shall the Lord of hosts come down to fight for Mount Zion, for the hill thereof. The reason why the lion is the king of beasts is he doesn't scare off. If you're up against a African lion, male, big mane and got some age on him, you can shoot him. He's still coming for you. I mean, if you don't kill him first shot, he's coming for you. He'll even stalk you. These guys that hunt these things, man, I mean, just put a chill up your back. They can shoot that lion. They say, you know, they'll get ready. They'll say, he's coming. He's coming. Why? He's not afraid of you. He's not even afraid he's going to die. He will come for you. He doesn't turn away for any. And that's really what this verse is saying, that when the Lord comes back, doesn't matter who's up there, doesn't matter what. If the United Nations, the whole force of the United Nations is down there, look out, man. Look out. He's not turning away for any. In Ezekiel 39:17, there's an application here because he talks about feeding this lion or these young lions, and he talks about the raven, talking about the young ones crying unto God. It says they wander for lack of meat. Well, God's going to provide them a good supper. And the Lord's going to say, supper's on me. Ezekiel 39:17, and thou son of man, thus saith the Lord God, speak unto every feathered fowl, and to every beast of the field, assemble yourselves and come together. Assemble yourselves and come, gather yourselves on every side to my sacrifice that I do sacrifice for you, even a great sacrifice upon the mountains of Israel, that be Megiddo, that ye may eat flesh and drink blood, or should I say Armageddon. Revelation 19, verse 17 and 18 says, I saw an angel standing in the sun, and he cried with a loud voice, saying, to all the fowls that fly in the midst of heaven, come and gather yourselves together unto the supper of the great God, that ye may eat the flesh of kings, and the flesh of captains, and the flesh of mighty men, and the flesh of horses, and them that sit on them, and the flesh of all men, both free and bond, both small and great. So when he talks about how you're going to feed all these animals I got, well, the Lord's going to provide them a great supper. In the tribulation, he said what? It's going to wipe out a 200 million man army. 200 million. That's how many he's coming across. 200 million. By the way, China can boast that. they can boast an army about that big. Now, whether they could arm all that many people and get them transport, he says that the Euphrates is going to dry up and make a way for that army to come through there. Because you got to get through them mountains and everything to get over there. Well, they're going to find a way to get there. And even if it's, and maybe that has something to do with that. There's a verse that talks about Leviathan thinks he could drop Jordan in his mouth. Job, is that Job? Yeah, Job 41. We'll be getting to that verse. So there's a lot of things here I don't understand how that's going to work, but in this case, though, we do know that he's going to have this great sacrifice. You got all these dead bodies. You know, he just calls the fowl and the wild animals, says, feast on them. They'll clean it up. Take them a while. I think after, if I'm not mistaken, it's after Armageddon, it takes 7 months. 7 months to bury the dead, and they're still finding bones. After that, you know, some people walk along, oh, I see a leg bone, and they have to get rid of it. I mean, you imagine 7 months to bury the dead, and this is after the feast. So, is it? Oh, okay. Okay, it's in the passage Ezekiel 39. Now, and last off, we could apply this to the devil as a lion. 1 Peter 5:8, be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary, the devil, is a roaring lion, walketh about, seeking whom he may devour. So you could make an application there. I don't know. One more thing I want to add. Look at Hosea 2:18 and 19. This is about nature. Let me find it. Get over there. Hosea chapter 2, verse 18 and 19. Doc put it this way. He said that nature is like a bride who doesn't have her bridegroom. That it's incomplete. And it kind of, he's talking there about betrothing Israel, but there's a covenant between the beast, or the fowl and the creeping things. He says, and in that day I will make a covenant for them with the beast of the field and with the fowls of heaven and with the creeping things of the ground, and I will break the bow and the sword and the battle out of the earth, and will make them to lie down safely. And that includes the animals. And I'll betroth thee unto me forever. Yea, I will betroth thee unto me in righteousness and in judgment, in loving kindness and in mercies. I will betroth thee unto me in faithfulness. I will even betroth thee unto me in faithfulness, and thou shalt know the Lord. Well, it includes the animals. Why? Because it says the lion will lay down with the ox, and the wolf will, how's that go? What's Isaiah 11? Turn there and we'll, last verse. Isaiah 11. You know, whereas there's verses that talk about the animals kind of going nuts. Well, you can imagine why they'd be going. Listen, if there is a worldwide drought of 3.5 years, every animal is going to be going crazy. They're going to be dying of thirst. And probably dying for want of food and water. And you can imagine, if anything's going to find some water to drink, it's probably going to be them. They can drink water you couldn't possibly drink. Or they can drink blood too. Maybe that's the reason they go nuts. But Isaiah 11, verse 6 to 9 says, and the wolf also shall dwell with the lamb, the leopard shall lie down with the kid, the calf and the young lion and the fatling together, and a little child shall lead them. And the cow and the bear shall feed. And you see a cow and a bear out there in the field feeding together. Both eating the same thing, too. Their young ones shall lie down together. The lion shall eat straw like the ox. You know, this is how God intended the thing. Now, this is not even in eternity. This is just in the millennium. He's taken the curse off of the ground and evidently removed some of the curse from these animals to where they're eating, they're harmless. You literally go up and just pet a tiger or a lion or, a lamb can go right up to a wolf. It says the sucking child, you're talking about less than what? 1 year old play on the hole of an asp? That's a venomous snake. And the weaned child shall put his hand on the cockatrice's den. Another snake, viper, I guess. They shall not hurt nor destroy in all my holy mountain, for the earth shall be full of the knowledge of the Lord as the waters cover the sea. So, even in the millennium, it's not going to be perfect because we're still going to have death. We're still going to have some measure of sin going on among man. But man, God's going to have control of the environment around us. He's going to have control of the plant life and the animal life. All that thing's going to just come right in. It's going to be something, man. Just knowing that, you go to the zoo and guess what? There ain't no bars. You just walk in, all the animals come up to you and they're licking you, Nothing wants to eat you. You try that now, man. I hear about these people, these animal lovers always love it when they stick their arm in there. Go ahead. He won't bite me. He knows I love him. Some lady she was a trainer, or not a trainer, but a feeder, and she was throwing grapes at this polar bear just down Cincinnati, and just throwing them through the bars, and she just happened to get too close, and he grabbed one of her fingers. And before she could react, he pulls in, and he goes, and he snapped it off right there at her elbow. That's how quick that went. Just throwing grapes. Want to give him, he needs his fruits. This is not how you feed a dangerous animal. But he's, they're harmless, probably had a Pepsi or a Coke in his left hand. Next thing you know, he's taking it off at her elbow. I don't know if they got it back, put it back. Probably did. He probably ate it. Anyway. I'll be glad when the Lord gets back and everything will be under His control. It'll be nice to see righteousness, because I tell you what, I just about can't stand to watch the news. I can't stand to watch these politicians. I can't. It is just, it's over my head as far as, you get so frustrated and you think, I know, Lord. You're letting all this happen. You're probably making some of it happen. You're deceiving them as much as they're already deceived. You'll deceive them even more. But it's like, you've got this avalanche of stupidity, and you can't stop it. People say, "Oh, this is stupidity." We still do it, and you get frustrated because you think, we need to change this. We can change, but God won't let that happen. I think America's set on a course, and God says, no, I'm taking you down. You're not going to preserve this union. I'm taking you down. And it's like that. And I think we get close, and then it kind of backs up a little bit, and then we get a little bit closer, and it backs up. But one of these days, we're going over the edge. We might have the Chinese invading our coast by tomorrow. I don't know. But it just gets crazier and crazier. And you can't make sense of it. You're trying to figure out, how does half this country support sodomites and sexual deviants and abortion? And we're talking about half this nation that supposedly supports this stuff. And then we think God's going to let us go on? He's judged nations for less than that. The old saying is, if God doesn't destroy America, He's going to apologize to Sodom and Gomorrah. That's really not that far-fetched. Because we are just like them in many ways. The perversion is just off the scale. To where they're going to get around to, was it Mambla? I don't know what it is. Mamba. It's about men and boys, children. They're going to get around to it. They got around to everything else. Bunch of perverts. And this is, they just goes on and on. Eventually, God's just he's going to vomit on the nation, man. I mean, he's just going to take that cup of sin, and there it is. And I tell y'all, we better hope we're out of here, or it's going to be something else. I'm praying, even so, come Lord Jesus. I don't even want to be here when it happens. But I don't see any escape. It's like that. It's like Israel when God was just fed up with them. He said, I don't care if Noah, Job, and Daniel were present. They are the only ones that make it out alive. And he's got to be looking at our nation like that. So anyway, I didn't mean to end on that kind of a bummer note. Anybody got a question? Comment? Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me I'm wrong. Okay.